Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Casual Leader Podcast, your weekly dose of real talk for people building real businesses and trying not to lose their sanity along the way. I'm your host, and today we're getting a bit existential. Fair warning. Here's what's been bothering me lately. Last week, I was in a planning session, and we went through all the end of the month reviews, the OKRs, how everything went, the whole thing. Then we spent 3 hours mapping out exactly what we want to achieve in the new month, how to measure it, what success looks like, what failure looks like, the contingency plans, the works. Then I got home, sat on my sofa, scrolled on my phone for about 20 minutes, and went to bed feeling a little bit off. And in the morning, I realized I have a more detailed and mapped operating system for my business than I do for my life. I got dashboards to track the metrics. I have company OKRs. I have mapped out the core values, purpose, and mission for the casual leader since the first week of its existence. And yet, I've never really sat down and asked myself what my actual personal mission is. Not in a serious way, not the way I would do it for my business. And I really don't think I'm alone in this. We build roadmaps for products, and yet we're winging it for our own existence. But also, here's the other thing that it's been on my mind and bothering me too. We're also drowning in advice. Have you noticed that? And I don't mean bad advice. That would actually be easier to deal with. I mean the really good advice, smart advice from credible people who genuinely want to help. If you open any app, scroll any feed, everyone has an opinion on how you should live your life. I'm sure you've seen it. 10 ways to be more productive. One habit that changed everything. The morning routine of successful people. 7 rules to have your best year yet. And here's what I've realized the problem is not the advice, the problem is knowing which advice to follow. Because without clarity on who you are and what you actually want, you end up choosing everything. You spend more time, more money, more energy, and you still don't know what can really, really help you. Simon Sinek actually put it very perfectly. He said, you have to know why you do what you do. Let me say that again. You have to know why you do what you do. Because having a point of view, having a why, means that some things were just not going to make sense to you. Having values means that some advice just won't fit. Having a direction means that some roads are just not yours to take. So today, I want to dig into all of it, the gap between how we plan our work and how we wing it for our lives. The advice overload, the frameworks, because yes, we do love a good framework over here, that might actually help, and the uncomfortable questions that we've been avoiding. So let's get into it. Okay, let me paint a picture. Let's say you're a founder, a leader, or someone who builds things. Or maybe you work at a company that takes planning very, very seriously. You probably have or have had some sort of version of a mission statement, core values, even if they're on a dusty slide somewhere, quarterly goals, some way to measure if you're winning or losing, if you're on track or off track. Now ask yourself, do you have any of that for you? Not for your company, but for you personally. Most people don't. I know I didn't. And when I started thinking about why, I realized it's because we treat personal fulfillment like it's supposed to just happen all of a sudden. Like meaning is something that you just stumble upon one day, one fine morning. Not something you actually build intentionally. But we never run a company that way. No, no, no. We wouldn't never say, yeah, we don't really need to have goals or a North Star. We just kind of like vibe and see what revenue shows up. Are you kidding me? That business is dead in less than 18 months. Yet, that's exactly how most of us approach the one thing that we actually have full control over our own lives. Now, I'm not saying you need a personal Notion dashboard with live KPIs. That sounds really, really exhausting and over the top. But there's something deeply weird about having more clarity on your company's purpose than on your own. And here where it gets actually complicated. Because It's not like we're not trying. We're actually consuming more self improvement content than any other generation in history. Books, podcasts, newsletters, YouTube videos, everything. We're talking to more mentors. We're joining more communities than ever. We're absorbing advice from people who've done it before. But the advice, a lot of the time, contradicts itself. One person tells you to move fast, take risks, bet on yourself. Another person tells you to be more patient, play the long game, don't rush. One says, follow your passion, nothing else matters. Another person says, well, passion is overrated, you should just follow the money. One person says that if you work harder than everyone else, then that's how you know you're going to make it. Another says, work smarter, protect your time, have the work life balance. And you're probably standing there thinking, who do I believe? And here's the uncomfortable truth, they're all right, and they're all wrong at the same time. Because advice is contextual, always. It comes from someone else's situation, someone else's values, someone else's definition of what success looks like. The advice that builds their dream might actually destroy yours. Let me give you an example. I have a friend who is building a company right now with his co founder, very early stages, and they're currently raising money. And like any startup in that phase, they're talking with a lot of people, advisors, mentors, other founders, investors, you name it. And one piece of advice that kept coming up from multiple people, smart people, people who've raised money before, they said remove the financials from your deck. Take out the burn rate, the revenue projections, the go to market strategy, the path to profitability. Just take it all out. Investors at this stage don't care, they said. They want the vision, they want the team. The financials come later, don't worry. It might sound good in theory. These are people who've been in those rooms, right? They know the conversation. Here's the question that you have to ask. Is that advice actually right for the startup and for the co-founders at this stage? Because the investor who doesn't want to see the financials is either making a bet on a dream or they are actually used to investing in experienced founders. And that's fine, but it might not be aligned with a founder who cares about building something sustainable from day one, something profitable, something real, without a proven track record or evidence of predictable revenue month on month. That advice is just bad. It just might not have been theirs to take. And that's the whole point. You could have access to the wisest mentors on the planet, the most experienced coaches, the most successful people in the industry. And none of it would matter if you don't know where you're trying to go. Because how can anyone help you navigate if you don't have a destination? They'll give you directions, sure, but directions to where? Most likely their destination, their version of success, their definition of a good life. If you don't know yours, you'll just end up following someone else's map to someone else's treasure. You might even get there. You might even celebrate when you arrive, but it won't be yours. And you'll probably end up being miserable. And that's the truth in business too. You need to know what kind of company you want to build before you decide which advice to follow. This is true in your career as well. You need to know what you actually want from your work before you can evaluate your opportunities and options. And this is also true in life. You need to know what matters to you before anyone else can help you get there. So the question becomes, how do you actually figure that out? Well, here's what I've come to believe from my own experience. Every great company has a mission, a purpose, a North Star, core values. And these aren't just like some nice words on a website. Well, maybe for some companies, yes, but for the really successful ones, probably not. They're actually the filter through which every decision gets made. Should I build this feature? Does it align with our OKRs, which should be aligned with our mission? Should we hire this person? Do they share our values? Should we take this partnership? Does it move us towards where we want to go? When a company knows its why, decision making just gets way simpler. Not easy, but simple. Because there's a framework, a compass, something to guide you. You need the same clarity for yourself. This is what Simon Sinek was getting at with his golden circle, too. Start with why, not with what you do, not with how you do it, but why you actually do it. For a company, the why is the purpose, the how is the mission, and what is product. And the core values, well, is how you hire and what you fire for. For you, same structure. Your why is what drives you, what you care about really, really deeply. Your how is intertwined with your values, how you showed up in the world, how you treat people, what lines you absolutely won't cross. Your what is the stuff you do, your job, your projects, your daily choices. When you know your why, advice stops being overwhelming. It becomes really obvious which pieces fit and which don't. You stop saying yes to everything, you start choosing what actually aligns to you. And I to quote Simon Sinek again, repetition creates alignment. But here's the hard part. Most of us don't know our why. We've never done the work to really figure it out. So let's talk about how you might be able to get to it. I'm going to give you a few different ways to approach this, depending on how far or close you are from your purpose. And hopefully, you'll find at least one way that works for you, because different things work for different people. And honestly, the best clarity usually comes from triangulating across multiple approaches. But stay with me here. Tool number one, and my personal favorite, the five whys. If you'd followed Casual Leader before and you're here for a while, you know that we love a really good framework. The five whys is a root cause analysis tool more than anything. And in engineering, when something breaks and we have downtime, you don't just fix it and move on. You fix it and then you start asking why about 5 times until you get to the actual root cause. Let's say users can't log in. Why? Well, because the authentication API crashed. Why? Oh, because a bug was pushed to production. Why? Because nobody caught it. Why? We assumed it was someone else's job. Why? We never really defined ownership. Well, now we actually know what we need to fix so it doesn't happen again. I tried this on myself as well a while back. I was feeling this like low grade of dissatisfaction, not depression, but just like a flatness. Uh, Go through the motion type of feeling. So naturally, I ran the five whys on myself. Why do I feel flat? Well, because I'm not excited about what I'm working on right now. Why am I not excited? Well, because I'm doing what I think I should be doing, not what I really, really want to do. Why am I doing what I should be doing? Well, because I'm scared that what I actually want to do isn't really practical. Well, why am I scared of that? Because I've tied my identity to being successful, and failure would mean I'm not who I think I am. So, why is my identity tied to success? Well, because I never really figured out who I am outside of my work. That escalated quickly, didn't it? But that's the point. The surface problem, I feel flat, wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that I built a life around achievement without even asking, what am I achieving it for? What's the purpose of it? Why? So give it a try. Pick something that you've been feeling down or confused about lately. Ask why about 5 times and be honest. You might actually be surprised what comes up. Figma actually has a really good template about this. I'll leave a link down below. Okay, tool number 2, the deathbed question. This is a very interesting one and a very uncomfortable one too, but it works. So ask yourself, what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? Not what they would say now. What do you want them to say at the end? And what's the gap between that and how you're currently living? When I sit with this question, the answers are never about like revenue and titles or any of the things that I really spend most of my days on, to be honest. They're more about how I made people feel, whether I was present or kind, whether I built something that helped people, whether I truly enjoyed this life, saw the corners of the world, grew as a person, laughed enough, loved enough. kind of the basics. That tells me something about my actual values, not my LinkedIn values, but my real ones. The legacy you want to live is basically your why, stated in reverse. Work backwards from it. If you're not sure or uncomfortable with that question, think about it like this. If tomorrow is your last day on earth, what would you have wished you've done? Okay, tool number 3. Notice the small moments. And I love this one because here's what I've noticed about happiness. And I hate that I'm about to sound like a self help guru, but bear with me here. We think about happiness as this like grand destination, the exit at the end of the road, the milestones, the I'll be happy when, the drill. And I'm sure you heard it. I've been happy when I have a bajillion dollars in my bank account. I'll be happy when I can afford my dream house, when I can travel all the time, when I can shop without looking at price tags. I'll be happy when insert your thing here. But if you actually pay attention, happiness is mostly small. It's the morning coffee before the chaos starts. It's the conversation where you actually laughed. The moment you finished something and felt that really tiny spark of pride before your brain actually moved on to the next task. We miss most of these because we're not paying attention. We're optimizing for some future state while ignoring the present. And that is actually the only thing that really exists. So start noticing what actually made today good? What drained you? When did you feel most alive this week? There are patterns in there, clues about what actually matters to you versus what you've been told it should matter. If your daily experience doesn't connect with whatever your purpose is, then your purpose is just a poster on the wall. It's not real. So stop sleepwalking and start noticing. Tool number 4. Experiment. This is my one of my favorite ones. I know I keep saying it's my favorite, but this one is very near and dear to my heart. Here's where I also push back on a lot of the self-help advice and wellness advice and all the other ones that are very surface level. They'll tell you to find your passion or discover your purpose like it's a buried treasure and you just need the right map. But I don't think it works like that. I think you have to build your way to clarity, not think your way there. You know what I mean? The best companies don't start with the perfect strategy. They have a hypothesis, they test it, they learn, they iterate. That's it. Most successful products look nothing like their original version because reality taught them something better. Why would finding your fulfillment in life be any different? You probably don't know what will make you happy. Not really. Maybe you have guesses, some inherited from your parents, some from your culture, maybe what LinkedIn told you success should look like. Some might be right, a lot of it probably is wrong. So you experiment. You try the thing. You see if it actually feels good or if you just thought it would. You notice when you're energized versus when you're have like the performing energy. You adjust. Personally, I thought Smash Room would be amazing for me. The place where you just like take a couple of bats and start smashing all the glasses and TVs and old computers and so on. And I realized that I felt really, really, really bad for smashing glasses. Something that I thought, oh my God, it's going to be amazing and such a good distressor turned out to be something that made me feel very uncomfortable and bad. But you never know until you try it. And there's loads of examples like that. Let's take Mark Rober. He mentioned that after his divorce, when he started dating again, he approached it very methodically. 30 FaceTime dates in 30 days. And that's how he actually found his current love. A very engineering like approach. Let's take another one. Jay Shetty went to be a monk for 3 years to figure out what life should look like for him. And we all know how that worked out. I've moved countries a few times now personally, and I'm still living between a couple of them because I knew there must be more out there that would align better with what I want my days to look like. And guess what? People looked at me like I was absolutely bonkers, like I was crazy and losing my marbles. But after starting over more than once now, I can actually officially report that my morning coffee is taken a lot of the times on a walk on the beach. Are all my days perfect? Absolutely not. But some of them start off well. I understand change is uncomfortable. We want certainty. We want someone to tell us the answers. I completely get it. But nobody has your answer, your specific answer. You have to run the experiment yourself to get to it. I can't do an episode about life operating systems in 2026 without talking about AI. I know. But I actually think AI is actually useful for this conversation. Not because it has the answers, no, but because it forces some questions. If AI can do some of your job, and let's be honest, it probably can do a little bit more than we would like to admit, then what's left? What's the part that's actually you? And let's take it a little bit further. If AI could do your whole job tomorrow and you have nothing but time, what would you do with the rest of your life? Let's say there's no money limitation, the world is your oyster. What would you do? That question used to be really philosophical. Now it's almost practical. For me, AI has become this weird mirror. It can write, it can analyze, it can save a lot of time, can do a lot of things. So, what actually makes me valuable? What do I bring to the table? Well, I really thought about it. And I can honestly say it's the ideas, the taste, the judgment, the relationships, the way I actually look at things, and the things that I choose to care about, the why, the meaning that I actually make from raw information and from conversations that I have around me. AI can help you develop your ideas. I use it all the time as a thought partner. I start with one little light bulb that goes off, and then we spiral off. But it can't really tell you what to want. It can't tell you what matters. That's still on you and me. That's still on us to figure this out. And if you've been avoiding that question by staying busy, by optimizing, by doing the next thing on the list, well, automation is coming for that list. So maybe now it's a good time to figure out what you actually want to be doing with this one gorgeous, beautiful life. Okay, let's say you've done some of this work. You have a better sense of what you care about, your why, what are your values, what kind of life you are actually trying to build. Now comes the harder question. Does your current life actually reflect that? Because knowing your why is useless if nothing about your life actually supports it. One way to check this is to look at where your time actually goes, and specifically who it goes to. Here's a concept that I like in management. We call it a 9 in a box grid for team evaluation. And I adapted it a little bit into something simpler to think about relationships. I split it into two questions. Does this relationship give me energy or drains me? Or does this relationship help me grow or keeps me stuck? And that kind of, if you put it on an axis, that gives you four quadrants. High energy, high growth. These are your people, the ones who light you up and make you better. Protect that time fiercely. Then you have high energy, low growth. These are the fun ones, There's nothing wrong with enjoying people. The ones you go out for, a weekend, the ones that you go out for brunch. That's completely fine. But just know what that relationship actually is. The low energy and high growth, those are the really challenging ones. It's a mentor that pushes you, a friend who tells you some really hard truths. Those relationships aren't always comfortable, but they really, really matter. So make sure you make time for them. Low energy, low growth. Why are they still here? You know what I mean? I know it sounds clinical. I know. But here why it really matters for this conversation about purpose, because your environment, I truly believe your environment really shapes you. The people you spend time with influences what you think is normal, what you think is possible, what you think it matters. If you spend enough time, you're going to start to see some patterns. Now, if you figured out your why, but you're not surrounded by the people who don't see it, don't support it, or actively pull you away from it, you're going to struggle. Trust me on this. Your relationships are either aligned with the life you're trying to build or they're not. And your time is really finite. It's one of the most precious resources we have as humans. It's time and health. This isn't about cutting people off coldly, or, well, maybe it is sometimes, let's be honest. But it is about being honest, right? Are you spending your hours by design or by default? Does where your time actually goes reflect what you say you care about? Because the compound effect of who you're spending time with is absolutely massive. Every hour with someone who drains you and keeps you stuck is an hour not spent with someone who maybe energizes you and helps you grow. Alignment isn't just about knowing your why, it's also about building a life that actually supports it too. So here's where we land. We've done the reflection, we've run the 5 whys, you've thought about what you want your legacy to be, you've noticed what actually makes you come alive, you've maybe even started experimenting a little bit. You've looked at whether your relationships or your time align with what you say it matters. Now comes the hardest part, actual living it. Because knowing your why means nothing if you don't have the courage to use it as a filter, to say no to advice that doesn't fit, even when it comes from smart people or from people that care about you, to walk away from opportunities that look good, feel wrong, to disappoint people who want you to be something that realistically you're not, to make choices that might not make sense to others because they only make sense to you. This is hard. I know it's really freaking hard. We're social creatures. We want approval. We want to belong. We want people to think we're smart and successful and doing the right things. But here's what I've learned, the cost of ignoring your internal compass is always way higher than the cost of disappointing others. You can recover from a failed project, you can recover from a wrong turn or a bad bet. But years of living someone else's life, man, that's harder to come back from. That's the thing that makes people wake up when they're 80, wondering where the time went, wondering who actually they are, wondering if the life they've built is even theirs. And it's not too late, by the way. This is the thing. It's really never too late to do it. But you have to start. You have to do the work that no podcast or book or mentor can do for you. You have to answer the questions that only you have the answer for. One of them being, what do you actually want really on this earth, on this life? What do you actually want? And then you have to have the courage to build towards it. One choice at a time, one no at a time, one day at a time. Because that's all a meaningful life is, really. The compound interest of small choices that align with who you actually are. Before we wrap, here's what I want you to hold on to. One, you have a business plan, you have career goals, but probably not a life plan or goals. That's worth fixing. And it all starts with your why. And number two, the problem is not the advice, it's knowing which advice fits you. If everything makes sense, then nothing makes sense, or maybe you stand for nothing. Three, no one can help you navigate without a destination. Know your why first, then seek guidance. Number four, great companies have mission, purpose, and values that guide their decisions. You need the same. It's your filter. Build it. Number five, use tools to find your why. The 5 whys for root cause, the deathbed questions for your values, the small moments around you for clues, experimentation for validation and guidance. Do not forget. Number six, you can't think your way to a purpose. You have to build and experiment your way there. Number seven, AI is a forcing function. If it can do your tasks, you're forced to ask what's actually yours, what only you can do that can't be replaced. Number eight, knowing your why isn't enough. Your life has to actually support it. Audit whether your time and relationships align to that. Number nine, once you know who you are, have the courage to filter it. Say no to what doesn't fit. Even if it's hard, you can do it. Number 10, a meaningful life is just compound interest. That's all it is. Small choices made daily that align with who you actually are. And here's what I would like for you to do this week. If there's nothing else, if you don't have the time or the energy to do any of the things that we talked about, start with these two exercises. Number one, and you probably know this, Run the 5 whys yourself. Pick something that you've been feeling, dissatisfaction, sadness, confusion, that vague sense of off. Ask why 5 times and be honest. Be honest. See where it takes you. Use the fig jam template. It's easy. Second part, write down 3 things: your non negotiables, which is the value that you won't compromise on for anything and anyone, your definition of success, not the version for public consumption, but the real one. What does actually a good life looks like to you? What's that definition of success for you? And number 3, one piece of advice that you've been following that doesn't actually fit who you are. And that last one really matters because we've all been absorbing guidance that wasn't really ours to take. Recognizing it is actually the first step towards your right direction. You don't need more input, trust me on this. You just need a little bit of clarity and focus. And that clarity can only come from you. No one can tell you what it is. All right, that's a wrap. I know this episode was a little bit different, less tactical, more existential. But I think these are the questions that matter, especially if you're building something, leading something, or trying to make a dent in this shared place we like to call world. Because what's the point of winning if you can never really figure out the game that you actually want to play? I don't have all of this figured out myself, by the way. I'm still running experiments like you are, but I think that's the point. You do the work, you stay honest, you keep asking why about 5 times, and then you repeat. What I do know, though, is that the world doesn't need yet another copy of someone else's success story. It needs your story, the one that comes from knowing who you are. And that's actually what real authenticity looks like. Now, if you loved or hated this episode, let us know in the comments below. We're here for both, as always. Let's get the conversation started. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, someone who's drowning in good advice but feels lost, someone who is making all the right moves but something still feels off, share it with them too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. We have tons of interesting subjects coming up. Plus, join our community on the website thecasualleader.com to keep the leadership vibes going and connect with fellow leaders just like you. For any resources, toolkits, and guides, or anything that we mentioned this episode, feel free to check out our website again, thecasualleader.com. And until next time, keep being you authentically, lead clearly, build smarter, and remember, everything starts with you. Start casual, keep going, keep growing. Bye!